In a troubling turn of events ahead of Chinese President Xi Jinping's state visit to Malaysia, police detained over 70 followers of the spiritual movement Falun Gong, raising concerns about the extent of Beijing's influence on local law enforcement. The detentions occurred just 2 days prior to Xi's arrival in Kuala Lumpur, echoing patterns of suppression documented by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists (ICIJ) in their ongoing investigation, China Targets. Kuala Lumpur Police Chief Datuk Rusdi Mohammed ISA confirmed that the arrests were made under suspicion of involvement with an illegal organization, dismissing allegations that they were instructed to detain the practitioners as a precautionary measure ahead of the high-profile visit. "We are taking strong action against this group," ISA stated, asserting that the arrests were consistent with Malaysian law. This response has sparked criticism, especially given the timing of the detentions, which are perceived as politically motivated. Falun Gong, a movement banned in China since 1999 and labeled as an evil cult, has faced systematic persecution both in its homeland and abroad. The recent arrests took place during a routine study session at a Kuala Lumpur office previously used by the now disbanded Malaysian Falun Gong Association. According to detainee Max Chua, police entered the premises, demanded identification, and confiscated various materials related to Falun Gong, including banners. His wife Jane Teo echoed the sentiment of confusion and frustration, recounting that police initially denied they were under arrest yet refused to return their identification. The detentions appear to be part of a broader pattern identified by the ICIJ, which highlights how local authorities in various countries have acted on behalf of the Chinese government to silence dissent. This tactic has been notably evident during Xi's overseas trips, where activists, including Uyghurs and Falun Gong practitioners, have been targeted for arrest. Chua revealed that during questioning, authorities directly inquired about their intentions regarding protests in light of Xi's visit, indicating a clear link between their detention and the political climate surrounding the state visit. The implications of these arrests extend beyond the immediate plight of the detained practitioners. Human rights advocates such as Kuala Lumpur-based lawyer Andrew Koo criticized the actions of the police as reflective of a troubling trend where political dissent is quelled in deference to foreign dignitaries. He remarked, "This is almost a police standard operating procedure in Malaysia," underscoring the worrying normalization of such practices. While 29 of the detainees were identified as Chinese nationals, many undocumented. The details of their legal status during the detention remain unclear. Reports suggest that some practitioners were held for up to 2 weeks after Xi's departure, raising significant questions about the rule of law and human rights protections in Malaysia. The Chinese government has continuously sought to strengthen its grip on dissenting voices both domestically and internationally. In parallel news, Xi has been reaching out to global business communities, emphasizing China's readiness to welcome foreign investment, particularly during a moment of trade tension with the United States. His recent letter to the Danish Chamber of Commerce highlighted the importance of bilateral cooperation, reflecting China's strategic aim to bolster international relations amid shifting geopolitical dynamics. As China navigates its complex relationships with countries worldwide, the implications of these detentions in Malaysia serve as a stark reminder of the lengths to which the Chinese government will go to suppress opposition even beyond its borders. As the global community watches closely, the future of dissent in Malaysia and the influence of China abroad will remain critical points of discussion in the evolving landscape of international relations. In the ever-shifting landscape of international relations, recent developments between Colombia and China signal a significant pivot in the geopolitical dynamics of Latin America. On May 14, 2025, Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced his country's formal accession to China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), a move that underscores Colombia's desire to enhance its economic ties with the Asian superpower while simultaneously seeking to redefine its foreign policy. Petro made his announcement during a state visit to Beijing, where he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The agreement marks a historic step for Colombia, which aims to leverage its participation in the BRI to address its substantial trade deficit with China, currently estimated at $14 billion. "We've joined the Silk Road," Petro declared. emphasizing the importance of engaging with global partners on equal terms. This sentiment reflects a growing trend among Latin American nations seeking closer ties with China as they navigate the complexities of global economic pressures and the increasing protectionism exhibited by some Western nations. China's influence in Latin America has been expanding rapidly, with over two-thirds of the region's countries now participating in the BRI. The initiative, which focuses on infrastructure and investment, aims to enhance connectivity and economic collaboration across continents. During a recent summit with leaders from the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States (CELAC), Xi Jinping pledged $9.2 billion in development loans for the region, positioning China as a reliable partner amid global uncertainties. Colombia's strategic decision to align more closely with China raises questions about the future of U.S. influence in the region. Historically, Colombia has been a steadfast ally of the United States, particularly in countering drug trafficking and enhancing regional security. However, Washington's silence regarding Colombia's shift is notable. Despite President Donald Trump's aggressive stances toward perceived Chinese encroachment in the Americas, including threats to Panama over its participation in the BRI, he has yet to address Colombia's new partnership directly. Political analysts suggest that this lack of engagement from the U.S. might embolden other Latin American countries to pursue similar paths. Chilean President Gabriel Boric, who also met with Xi during the summit, reiterated his commitment to multilateralism and cooperation with China, emphasizing the need for Latin America to defend its interests collectively. "We must defend the interests of the global South together," Boric stated, highlighting a regional consensus on the importance of diversifying international partnerships. While Colombia's entry into the BRI is a significant development, it does not necessarily equate to a complete realignment away from the United States. The Colombian government is keen to maintain a balanced approach, seeking to enhance trade and investment while managing the strategic implications of its foreign policy. Petro's administration aims to promote national interests without alienating traditional allies, a delicate balancing act that will require careful navigation as geopolitical tensions evolve. As Colombia embarks on this new chapter, the implications for U.S.-Latin American relations remain to be seen. The Biden administration, still in its formative years, may need to reassess its strategy in the region to counteract the growing influence of China. Observers will be closely watching how these dynamics unfold, particularly in light of the ongoing tensions between the U.S. and China on multiple fronts. In conclusion, Colombia's embrace of the Belt and Road Initiative not only signifies a bold step towards economic revitalization but also reflects broader shifts in the global order. As Latin America increasingly asserts its agency on the world stage, the implications for U.S. foreign policy and regional stability will be profound. The coming months will be crucial in determining how these emerging alliances will shape the future of international relations in Latin America and beyond. In a significant move signaling a renewed focus on international relations, Chinese President Xi Jinping has reached out to the Danish business community, expressing his desire for enhanced bilateral cooperation. This letter marks the first time since 2021 that Xi has communicated with a foreign commerce chamber, underscoring China's strategic efforts to expand its network of global partnerships amidst an ongoing trade war truce with the United States. In his correspondence with the Danish Chamber of Commerce in China, Xi acknowledged the chamber's role in fostering relations between China and Denmark, as well as its contributions to China's development. "We hope that the Danish Chamber of Commerce in China and its member companies will continue to serve as a bridge between China and Denmark and between China and Europe," he stated, as reported by the state-run Xinhua news agency. This message reflects China's broader ambition to position itself as an attractive destination for foreign investment, capitalizing on a temporary reduction in tariffs following a recent agreement with the U.S. to ease trade tensions for a 90-day period. Xi's outreach comes at a pivotal time, as Denmark's Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen is set to embark on a 4-day visit to China aimed at strengthening ties and deepening bilateral cooperation. This visit is expected to focus on various sectors including trade, investment and sustainability, areas where both nations see potential for mutual benefit. Simultaneously, Brazil is making headlines with its burgeoning trade relations with China, particularly in the soybean sector. In the first quarter of 2025, Brazil's soybean production soared to an estimated 167 million tons, with China accounting for a substantial portion of imports. March saw Brazil exporting approximately 15.7 million tons of soybeans, a record high for that month, further solidifying the economic interdependence between the two nations. However, this increase in agricultural trade raises concerns about environmental sustainability, particularly regarding deforestation in Brazil's Cerrado biome. The surge in demand for Brazilian soy, fueled by tensions in U.S.-China trade relations, presents a dual challenge. It could contribute to increased deforestation, which is responsible for a significant portion of global carbon emissions. Experts warn that while Brazil strives to meet China's agricultural needs, the environmental costs could undermine global sustainability efforts. The Brazilian government has initiated the PP Cerrado Action Plan to address these issues, but support from key trade partners like China will be crucial. China's ambitions extend beyond trade as it seeks to assert its influence on a global scale, particularly in Africa. By leveraging soft power through strategic investments and diplomatic engagements, Beijing aims to reshape the geopolitical landscape in its favor. The Belt and Road Initiative exemplifies this strategy, creating economic ties while promoting a positive narrative around Chinese governance models. President Xi's administration has historically supported African liberation movements and is now intensifying efforts to establish a Sinocentric world order. Educational exchanges and media influence are key components of this strategy as China aims to cultivate a pro-China sentiment across the continent. The establishment of political party training schools and diplomatic dialogues further illustrates China's commitment to fostering strong relations with African nations, positioning itself as a leader in addressing global challenges. As the dynamics of international trade and diplomacy evolve, the actions taken by China, Denmark, and Brazil highlight a significant shift in global economic relations. These developments suggest a future where countries are increasingly interconnected, yet also face pressing challenges related to environmental sustainability and geopolitical influence. The outcomes of these initiatives will likely shape the landscape of global trade and environmental policies in the years to come. In a significant development that underscores the strengthening ties between China and Russia, Beijing has expressed its readiness to enhance military cooperation with Moscow. This announcement follows Chinese President Xi Jinping's recent visit to Russia, where he attended a Grand World War II Victory Day parade in Moscow. The evolving partnership between these two nations has garnered attention, particularly in the context of ongoing global tensions and geopolitical maneuvering. The Chinese Ministry of Defense conveyed this intent through a statement on the social media platform WeChat, emphasizing that the Chinese military is prepared to deepen strategic mutual trust and expand practical cooperation with its Russian counterpart. The Chinese military stands ready to work with the Russian side to further deepen strategic mutual trust, step up strategic communication, and expand practical cooperation, the statement read. This announcement is not an isolated incident but rather part of a broader trend of increasing collaboration between China and Russia, particularly in military and defense matters. Following Xi's visit, which included discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin, both leaders agreed to reinforce their strategic partnership, aiming for a more robust military relationship that could potentially alter the balance of power in various regions, including the Asia-Pacific. The implications of this expanded cooperation are significant, especially in light of the current geopolitical landscape. The U.S. and its allies have expressed concerns that closer military ties between China and Russia could threaten global stability. In recent years, the two nations have engaged in joint military exercises and strategic air patrols, signaling a commitment to a collaborative defense posture. Moreover, Xi's visit coincided with China's broader ambitions in other regions, particularly in Latin America. Just days before, at a ministerial summit of the China Community of Latin American and Caribbean States (CELAC), she unveiled a substantial $9.2 billion credit line aimed at fostering economic ties and infrastructure development across the region. His remarks at the summit painted China as a champion of multilateralism in stark contrast to what he termed bullying and hegemony from the U.S.
China's growing influence in Latin America.
Marked by its status as the largest trading partner for several South American nations, poses a challenge to U.S. interests in the region. The U.S. government has been wary of China's investments, particularly in infrastructure projects that may have dual-use capabilities which could potentially serve military purposes. The strategic implications of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has seen numerous Latin American countries sign agreements with Beijing, further exacerbate these concerns. As these dynamics unfold, the potential for increased military cooperation between China and Russia could lead to further complications in U.S. foreign policy, particularly as Washington seeks to counteract Beijing's influence. The U.S. has historically used economic sanctions and diplomatic pressure to stymie China's outreach efforts, yet as China's economic footprint expands, so too do its capabilities to challenge U.S. hegemony. Looking ahead, the evolving relationship between China and Russia will likely continue to shape the geopolitical landscape. As both nations pursue their respective strategic interests, the potential for a coordinated approach to regional and global challenges poses a formidable obstacle for the U.S. and its allies. The international community will be watching closely as these developments unfold, particularly in the context of ongoing conflicts and diplomatic efforts in regions like Ukraine and the Middle East. The future of this partnership could redefine alliances and alter power dynamics on a global scale. In an era marked by shifting global power dynamics, China's influence in Africa is rapidly expanding as the nation seeks to reshape the international order to reflect its values and priorities.
The recent analysis by Samir Bhattacharya at the Observer Research Foundation illuminates Beijing's strategic approach, which blends economic investment with cultural diplomacy to foster pro-China sentiments across the continent. As traditional powers wane in their influence, China's actions signal a significant transition toward a more Sinocentric world. Historically, China has leveraged its economic strength to build relationships in Africa, but its ambitions have now evolved into a more nuanced strategy. The Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), launched in 2013, is central to this effort. While the BRI is often associated with infrastructure development, it also serves as a platform for promoting the Beijing Consensus, a governance model that prioritizes economic growth over democratic norms. By portraying its development approach as more suitable for the needs of developing nations, China has effectively positioned itself as an alternative to Western models. Beijing's strategy extends beyond mere economic engagement to actively shaping political narratives. In the wake of declining relationships between African nations and their former colonial powers, China has intensified its efforts to secure Africa's diplomatic support. This includes not only substantial investments in key sectors but also initiatives aimed at cultivating ideological alignment. As Bhattacharya notes, China is deploying influence operations extensively to shape public narratives in its favor and win the battle for Africa's hearts and minds. The historical context of China's involvement in Africa adds depth to its current initiatives. During the Cold War, China supported various liberation movements across the continent, establishing a legacy of goodwill that it now seeks to capitalize on. This historical backing has laid the groundwork for contemporary partnerships, particularly in countries with long-standing ties to China, such as Tanzania, where the Mwalimu Julius Nyerere Leadership School was inaugurated to train future African leaders in the Chinese political model. The educational outreach is a critical component of China's soft power strategy. Study tours and academic exchanges have become a cornerstone of China-Africa relations, allowing hundreds of African officials annually to experience Chinese governance practices firsthand. These initiatives not only promote mutual understanding but also subtly encourage the adoption of Chinese norms. China is also positioning itself as a mediator in regional disputes, further enhancing its influence.
The involvement of Chinese companies in major infrastructural projects such as the transboundary oil pipeline linking Niger and Benin underscores Beijing's dual role as both an investor and a diplomatic actor. With 54 African nations involved, this strategy not only secures economic interests but also aligns political support with China's vision for a new global order. However, as China seeks to consolidate its influence in Africa, it faces the challenge of navigating an increasingly multipolar world. The continent is awakening to new ambitions, and African leaders must grapple with the implications of aligning with a Sinocentric order versus pursuing genuine multilateralism. Ultimately, China's expanding presence in Africa, characterized by strategic investments, educational initiatives, and diplomatic engagement, sets the stage for a potential reconfiguration of global power dynamics. As Beijing continues to assert its influence, the choices made by African policymakers will be crucial in determining the future trajectory of international relations. The battle for influence may unfold without direct confrontation as China seeks to subdue the enemy without fighting, a strategy that could redefine the nature of global diplomacy in the coming years.